Welcome back, YouTube. So today we're gonna cover everything Devastation Evoker in patch 11.2 for season 3 of the War Within. And just as always in all my guides, we're gonna cover stats, gear, rotation, and something a little bit different. So um, on a scale of 1 to 10, how easy is this class to play? Um, I would say it's about an 8 or a 9. Mechanically speaking, like how your buttons work, how you do damage, what your defensives are. And so it's pretty easy to pick up. So if you're looking for an alt, or just like you're looking to have some fun, Devastation is definitely a solid pick. Um, how easy is it to play? Uh, you know, pretty well translates into how much fun it is. I mean, this is the most fun spec in the game for me. I played, Mage for 8+ years, and as soon as Dragonflight dropped, I just completely switched over to Devastation, and it's just a ton of fun. You just fly around, you're just blasting, and you're definitely gonna like it if you're just picking up for the first time. All right, so we're gonna go over the stats first, and when Devastation originally got dropped, it was mastery stacking, but in the new season, ever since like patch or the third season of Dragonflight, mastery just really hasn't. It's just been nerfed too hard, and so what you're looking for right now is going to be haste, and then followed by mastery, versatility. You're really looking for about like 30% versatility, 30% haste, and then like 25 to 30 mastery. That'll be different depending on what kind of gear you get, but for the gear, let's look at our 2 set, which is insane, by the way. It's while flying during deep breath and for 10 seconds after. You command a squadron of 2 direct Thier who will attack your targets with Disintegrate and Pyre. And 4 set is just making it so that Mass Disintegrate strikes 2 additional targets from your NPCs that spawn, and they'll assist you for 5 additional seconds. Now this does a lot of damage, a lot of good consistent damage during your deep breath goes, and so that'll all come together when I share the rotation later. But as a baseline, you want haste, verse on every piece that you can find it. I have the Rescue Wraps, which is a nice proc chance for damage, and helps us a lot because Devastation, as you know, the mastery is a reverse execute. So the higher health that a target is, you're doing more damage, but once they get lower, your damage starts to fall off. That's where the mastery comes in, right? So the Rescue Wraps is nice because when enemies are below 35% health, they take 20% additional damage, which helps us out a ton. Helps us with that finishing power. So initially, when the season dropped, I went ahead and did the PvP world quests for the bloody tokens, and I got a chess piece because it's haste mastery. I will eventually replace this just for the higher item level when conquest is unlocked and I can buy whatever I want. But for now, I just bought a piece from the bloody token vendor and converted it into tier, and then I went ahead and got 1600 and a bracket so that I could get an additional charge. And I picked up the gloves just for the stats. So for verse mastery. So these are the best stats that you could find right now on the 4 set. And it will be a little bit of a toss-up depending on what you want to get for your 3rd and your 4th tier set, which we absolutely will use. And so I would say the next piece after that was probably going to be this one, the legs, because it has mastery on it. And then whatever one has higher haste, so then probably the shoulders after that. Having a lot of crit on a piece doesn't really help us much because crit is nerfed in Arena, and we're not really a one-shot spec anymore. We're just a lot of upfront, consistent like pressure and damage. And so for the rest of the gear, just like I said, haste verse on every single piece. If you can't get haste verse, then you can replace it with verse mastery like the ring, but you'll eventually just craft the rings. And then I like to use the alacrity badge because of the consistent damage primary stat proc, and then haste main regular stat on it, and the regular trinket. And then for your gear, as far as crafted goes, I've tested elemental focusing lens a lot, and it just doesn't really do what I want it to do. Um, you know, so I found that I crafted the Elgari competitor staff like right away when I got my 9x heralds. I just bought one more, and then I created I got them to make me a staff, and then I put ascendance on it because just having more raw stats is going to be better than it just performs better than elemental focusing lens. And so I usually put the secondary embellishment on it that's going to just like ramp it up a little bit more. And so that's what I use for the optional reagents there. Okay, so let's go over the rotation. And so before we do that, I'll show you the build. And so I'll have this, in the description. I'll have the code for you. And so starting on the left-hand side, there is a world where you can absolutely drop Scarlet Adaptation for something else, maybe like Shorter Root. This has been nerfed too hard, and they forgot about it to bring it back up, in line. And so you can definitely drop this if it's not required to take. I do love Ancient Flame just to help out with, if I'm, kiting and all of a sudden I need to heal myself once. Then I get a nice living flame on myself, and then we're gonna embrace myself, and I can do it again, just for fast, consistent, like kiting and healing. Let's see. Never take this off. Instinctive Arcana. I always tend to leave 1 point in attune to the dream. And that's because like sometimes I'll take this point from here, unravel, and put it 2 points here. Panacea, just another one that's just fell really far behind with the nerfs, and it's just not really worth to take it anymore. So I don't take it. And so if I'm playing into Death Knights or like Warlocks specifically, I will take this. I won't take this into pretty much anyone else because I want to break Anti-Magic Shell, and I want to break Dark Pact. And so I'll take that when I'm playing against them. Oppressing Roar, Rescue, and Focus Life and Fire Within is kind of situational, but I swear, like, damage still comes so fast, and a lot of the times when I have the regular Renewing Blaze Fire Within, like, it's not a cooldown because I just get bursted through it. And so when I know that burst is like incoming or like high damage is incoming, then I can press Renewing Blaze and I'll actually live. Like, I'll always live, especially if I pair it with Obsidian Scales. And then Twin Guardian, Leap of Flames, these things are all standard. Nothing has really changed much with the Devastation tray. And, that's okay because our job is damage and we're going to do the damage. And so moving on to the right side, because of your 2 set and how the NPCs are spawned and do damage for you on Deep Breath, we're just obviously looking at press Deep Breath off cooldown. And so 20% increased damage in lightweight is going to take that. Always leave this on Engulfing Blaze. There is wiggle room here for 1 flex talent point, so you can take imminent destruction, which I do like. If you're playing Scouring Flame, I like to take Font of Magic, and then I used to really like this talent, Arcane Vigor, but you can't take it situationally. But I feel like just at a baseline, like you just get more value from Font of Magic when you're playing Purge, and then because of our 2 set and 4 set, just having the extra Deep Breath and Disintegrate damage, it's just going to be way better for us in the long run. And so moving on to the Scale Commander, you really can't play Flame Shaper in Arena. It's just they just haven't really done what it needs to do for bring it in line with Scale Commander. Scale Commander is so insane. And so Mass Disintegrate, which your Empower spells cause your Disintegrate to strike up to 3 targets. And so your Empower spells are Fire Breath and Eternity Surge. So when you press them, you'll see I have a buff here for Mass Disintegrate, and it'll spread your Disintegrate. Same thing with Eternity Surge. You'll see the buff here. It spreads. And we'll talk about chaining and how Disintegrate works and clipping and all that in a little bit. But continuing on, Might of the Black Dragonflight. So black spells deal 20% increased damage. This was actually nerfed for a while. It went under the radar, but they recently fixed it. So that means our bombardment damage is doing more. So mass disintegrate marks your primary target for destruction for the next 6 seconds. And so when you mass disintegrate someone, you'll see the NPCs fly overhead and do damage, and your teammates can contribute to that. You see them fly over. If I can get them to proc. There they are. They just fly over, they do a bunch of splash damage. And this little buff up here just increases the damage that they've taken from you and your teammates. So very nice to have. Onslaught during or entering combat grants you a charge of burnout, which is incredibly nice. You know, you're out of combat and all of a sudden, boom, I get a nice burnout proc, so I can heal myself or I can launch that to do damage or snipe a totem or something like that. Melt armor, so this is where like our 2 set comes in. So deep breath causes enemies to take 20% increased damage from bombardments and essence abilities for 12 seconds. So I'll show you the rotation later and what that means. So your essence abilities are disintegrate and pyre, and so after the deep breath and you see the bombardments on them, you're just gonna be spamming disintegrate and just doing that much more damage. Bombardment reduced cooldown deep breath by 1 second, so just more uptime, more consistent flowing damage rotation, just getting to your next deep breath, which is what the spec is all about. And then a passive 15% buff while you're in combat, very nice. And then you have a choice here between hardened scales, which reduce your damage by an additional 10% when you have obsidian scales active, which I always take and never take that off. And then knocking enemies up backwards, menacing presence. I don't really. This is like an AUG thing. If you play AUG, you can use this because you knock them up very consistently with upheaval, but not for devastation. And then your next choice is extended battle or diverted power. I don't really like diverted power. I feel like it never really did what it was supposed to be doing. It just doesn't proc enough, and I feel like my essence generation, I don't really feel starved for essence when I'm playing. So extended battle is great because your essence ability just extend the bombardments. So see how like refresh the buff. So every time I spam a disintegrate or pyre, if I really wanted to, it would extend it like slightly. And then maneuverability, so deep breath can have you steer in your desired direction, and then deep breath puts a dot for 1.4 million biochanic damage over 12 seconds. So before you start every encounter or burst rotation, any of your damage, you're gonna want to be deep breathing off cooldown. You can see how the NPCs spawn for you. They will target random things that are near it. They're just flying around blasting, it's hilarious. They're doing so much damage. Like, I look at this. Like, it's insane. When people are grouped up, you're going to be doing so much extra damage. It's insane. Devastation is in such a good spot right now. Yeah, so your goal is to get everything off after your deep breath. And, with that, I will show you the burst rotation. We'll go into that. Real quick, before we do the rotation, let's go over the honor talent. So Chrono Loop, honestly, has fallen off over the years. This used to be an amazing ability, and I used to be able to Chrono Loop people very low, and then they would go back to the health that they were at, but it can't reduce them below 20% health anymore. So if you Chrono Loop somebody at 5% HP, and you don't kill them, and they live, and they're still below 20%, they'll go back to 20%, so you're just healing them. The best way I've found that you use this ability in today's world is using it on somebody like a warrior, where imagine you're trying really hard to get away, and every gap closer he just has for you, and then let's say he gets on top of you, and you put a chrono loop on him, and then you use like hover to get away, and he has a leap, and he leaps after you, and then he just gets yanked back on the chrono loop. That's the best way I've found it to work. Obsidian metal is incredible because when you pop your wall, you can't get kicked, and so it's just really good to have. If you're fighting like double melee or even double caster, and you just don't want to get kicked. Period. Okay, moving on to Time Stop. Time Stop is an incredible ability to use on either yourself or a teammate, depending on the situation. So, if I expect that I'm going to be crowd controlled in the next few seconds and I want to negate that, I can just time stop myself. And I'm immune. It's like Zanyas from League of Legends. They can't interact with me at all, and no one can interact with me, not even my teammates. So you got to be careful, because if your teammates like try to cocoon you or like put Iron Bark on you or swap you, like life swap, then the cooldown from them gets used and you get no benefits. So you got to be very careful with that. Um, Sky and Flame, like I said, is for purge teams. So like I'm always taking this into druids every single time. There's no question. There is sometimes where I'll take it into like shamans, like resto shamans, because purging the Earth Shield and the Riptide is, a big deal. And then you could also take it into preservation evokers, because taking away their reversions is just gonna reduce their healing, because they get increased healing based on how many reversions they have on the target. So swoop up is something for strictly battlegrounds. At the highest level, where they take an enemy and who's like carrying the flag, and they like jump them off the map or something. Uh, but yeah, Nullifying Shroud is actually updated from the last time you might have seen it. So now Verdant Embrace is going to give you a full loss control effect against you. So when you Verdant Embrace anybody, whether it be yourself or a teammate, I gotta have it talented, but yeah, when you put it on, and I made a little weak core to tell me when my Verdant Embrace is up. So I love this change, because number one, it's not purgeable. At least I haven't found that it is yet. And number two is like it's up so frequently, it's almost like a priest fade in a sense. And so if like, let's say like this guy is like a warrior and he's gonna stormbolt me from where he is, and I see it coming, I can just put the shroud up and I don't get stunned. It's pretty good, you know. Um, so I do take it for a lot of times like that. Divide and Conquer, honestly, is such a meme. It's never been fixed. It says that deep breath forms, curtains of fire that only enemies have, line of sight issues. But when I use it, and I'm not allowed to target anything on the other side. See, and my NPCs are like, oh, dude, what's happening right now? So, don't take it, don't use it. It's not good. You're just gonna be shooting yourself in the foot. Dreamwalker's Embrace. This is also something that is just not good. It's it's not worth a talent choice at all. Just never pick it. It's never gonna do you anything, honestly. And then Unbridled Flight, I never take off, honestly, because as being 25 yards, I'm not going to be slowed. I'm just not going to deal with that. I know some people that are also like high XP dev mains, sometimes they drop it. I don't recommend it. I just don't do it. Just keep it on permanently. And then for the most part, I'm either taking, Scouring Flame and Nullifying Shroud, or, if I need to swip out for Obsidian Metal or Time Stop, I'll do so based on what I'm fighting. Alright, so now we're going to go over your rotation, your opener, what it's going to look like when you're going to do max damage, you're popping all your cooldowns. And so your optimal situation is going to be when you have, all the enemies grouped up like this. And so I'm going to first, if I can, root everyone. Pressing roar so they can't move, right, with the root. Deep breath. Dragon Rage, tip the Scales Fire Breath, launch a Living Flame so I get 2 Essence Burst procs, Shattering Star, Eternity Surge, spam Disintegrates back to back, let this one run out because of Mass Disintegrate and Chaining, and we'll go over that in a little bit. But you always want to press Disintegrate with your Essence Burst procs, and then you're going to chain properly. Like I said, we'll go over that in a little bit. Keep pressing Disintegrate. Shattering Star again up cooldown, Eternity Surge, back-to-back Disintegrates. And just keep spam and disintegrate, chaining when you get to the end, and when you run out, boom. Our deep breath stuff cooldown again. Send it. Fire breath, shattering star, eternity surge, back to back disintegrate, and I have imminent destruction, so it's a little bit cheaper and it does more damage. And so, as you can see, I mean, our commandos are doing absurd amounts of damage. Imagine if we were doing, 77 million less damage without it. It's just like, it's so required. You need it. It's so much damage. When you're deep breathing and you're popping all your cooldowns, like, you are just an incredible powerhouse of damage. It's so insane. So again, same kind of thing for your consistent damage rotation. My dragon rage is off cooldown, and so but my deep breath is up, so boom, stun everyone, get a fire breath out on as many targets as possible, shattering star, eternity surge, back to back disintegrates, and let this one run out because of how mass disintegrate works. And I can talk about that right now, actually. So let me get my cooldowns back. And so at a baseline, disintegrate is going to channel 5 times, 5 points worth of damage. That's how it works. And I have a weak aura for it. I'll put the weak aura in the description. And so when you cast disintegrate, you can, at the very beginning of your cast, and then 3 ticks in the middle, and then 1 at the end. So if you can see my cursor here, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points of damage. Okay. And so when you press mass disintegrate, okay, that increased damage will tick for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points of damage. But what happens when you use fire breath and eternity surge? Well, you have 2 stacks of mass disintegrate, okay? And so what you want to do is you want to chain into the next one and then finish the second cast, and I'll show you what that looks like. So press fire breath, press eternity surge. You see how I have 2 mass disintegrates? So I will chain it at the very last point of damage into the next one, and then let this one finish, because I want all 10 ticks of it to be increased damage. If I were to chain it again into a third one, providing I have the essence, then I would lose on that extra 1 point tick of increased damage. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal, but if you're coming to my channel, you want to learn the best way to play this class, you want to maximize your damage, and that's how you do it. And so if you have 2 stacks, you'll start the cast again and let it finish on the second when you have 2 stacks. And if you only have 1 stack of mass disintegrate, like if I say, for example, whatever, my eternity surge is not up, I only have this, I only have 1 stack, then just channel it fully through and let it finish. Alright guys, that is my guide for Devastation Evoker for The War Within Season 3. If you like what you saw today, please leave a like up in the video. I have been on a little bit of hiatus with putting out videos because I was moving and I went back to active duty for the Army, so that took me out of making videos for a while. So everything that you do as far as leaving a like or comment just motivates me that much more to get back into it and put out great content for you guys. So appreciate you doing that. And also, if you want to catch me live, my Twitch is JD_you dig. Going to be start streaming a little bit more as the season starts, so you can go follow me on there. So thanks guys for checking this out, and I'll see you in the next one.